Okay, so today's deep dive, we're heading back to Middle-earth.
Back again.
But we're not talking hobbits this time, or
Yeah.
like breathtaking scenery. We're tackling someone a little rough around the edges, fiercely loyal, and maybe a little too obsessed with his beard.
Oh, I know who you mean.
Gimli, son of Gloin.
Right.
So you said this article, and it analyzes him through, that Enneagram personality things, like focusing on type 6, the loyalist. Have you heard much about this?
Yeah, I have. It's a system that categorizes personalities based on core fears and motivations.
Okay.
And sixes or loyalists are all about security.
They
They
say.
really long for support and guidance, but at the same time, they can be super wary of anyone who seems untrustworthy.
So they're like needing a map, but then checking it constantly to make sure it's right.
Exactly. And Gimli is actually a great example of a specific six subtype. It's
Oh,
called
yeah.
the counterphobic six.
Counterphobic. Okay.
And instead of avoiding what scares them, they kind of charge right at it.
Oh.
Almost like a preemptive strike.
That actually explains the whole axe-wielding thing a bit better.
Yeah.
But it's not just mindless rage, though, right?
No, not at all.
Our source makes it sound more strategic.
It is. Think about Gimli's rivalry with Legolas, over the whole orc slang thing.
Oh, yeah.
On the surface, it's just dwarves versus elves.
Right.
But for a counterphobic six, it's about proving themselves against fear.
Okay. So less about hating orcs and more about battling inner demons.
Exactly.
Get it.
Yeah.
But doesn't that kind of contradict the whole loyalist thing?
Mhm.
He doesn't exactly trust easily, especially those pointy-eared elves.
Oh, that's a key point.
Hmm.
You've hit on something there. Sixes really struggle with trust.
Uh-huh.
But once it's earned, their loyalty is rock solid.
Oh, wow.
Gimli's initial suspicion, especially towards Legolas,
Oh, yeah.
very classic six behavior.
I mean, remember that line, never trust an elf?
Oh, yeah.
Practically spits it out.
But keep in mind that distrust comes from a deep need to feel safe to have a reliable support system. They're constantly scanning for threats, questioning authority, always on alert.
So that warrior persona, I mean, the axe, the gruffness, it's all part of this, like, self-protective shell.
Yeah.
Like, don't mess with me. I'm too tough to bother with.
Precisely. It's a mask. It's a way to control their environment and keep danger at bay.
Huh.
The article calls it Gimli's warrior's mask.
Okay.
And it suggests that his aggression is more about managing anxiety than actual bloodthirst.
But that seems at odds with the incredible loyalty he shows later on, especially to the Fellowship.
Mm-hmm.
How does that fit in?
Well, it's a balancing act for a six. They crave belonging but fear losing their individuality.
Yeah.
Gimli needs that group security, but he also fiercely asserts his dwarfness,
Yeah.
his own set of principles.
Like that, not the beard scene.
Exactly.
I mean, I laugh.
Oh, yeah.
But now I'm thinking it's more than a funny line.
Right. Sixes often have strong boundaries and a personal honor code that helps them manage their anxiety.
Okay.
For Gimli, his beard symbolizes his dwarven identity, his pride, his line in the sand.
So it's less about vanity and more about these are my rules, and messing with them means messing with me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that need for structure, for clear boundaries, it's amplified by Gimli's dwarven heritage. Think about it. Dwarven society is all about tradition, craftsmanship,
Yeah.
a very defined way of life.
Which probably feels super comforting to a six who craves that sense of order.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm starting to see how it all ties together.
Good.
But before we go down that rabbit hole,
Sure.
there's one relationship we can't ignore.
Oh, yeah.
Gimli and Galadriel.
Absolute.
Let's talk about a turning point.
Big time. It's a prime example of how deeply loyal sixes can be once someone pierces those defenses.
Okay, anyone meeting Galadriel would be a bit starstruck.
For sure.
But with Gimli, it's different, right?
Yeah.
There's this vulnerability that emerges.
Right. The article highlights how Galadriel, this embodiment of grace and power, unlocks something in him.
Interesting.
It's not just attraction. It's like she embodies the strength and security he craves.
Hence the whole asking for a strand of her hair thing.
Precisely. For a six, it's not about a trophy,
Right.
but a symbol of that ideal they've found.
Yeah,
And remember, Gimli later fiercely defends her honor.
that's right. He does.
That's six loyalty and action unwavering once it's given.
It's making me rethink the whole tough guy image.
Yeah,
There's this idealism under the surface, wouldn't you say?
definitely. And that's something we'll delve deeper into when we come back. Because turns out Gimli's journey from gruff warrior to devoted friend is a textbook example of how sixes can transform when they find trust and true connection.
All right, well, we'll be back soon to
To continue.
continue our deep dive into Gimli, son of Gloin.
That's good.
Okay, back to Middle-earth for part 2 of our deep dive into Gimli, son of Loin.
Right.
Last time we were talking about how his gruff exterior is actually this warrior's mask
Right.
to help a counterphobic six like him deal with all that inner anxiety.
It's like they're saying, the best defense is a good offense.
Uh-huh.
They tackle their fears head on,
Right.
trying to control the situation before it controls them.
So it makes sense that he'd be drawn to someone like Galadriel,
Yes.
who just radiates power and serenity.
Yeah.
But, some folks might argue that Gimli's just hot-headed
Yeah.
and not this complex six personality. What evidence would you give them?
Well, it's not just about being quick to anger.
Okay.
It's about that constant vigilance,
Mm-hmm.
the testing of boundaries,
Yeah.
the need to analyze every situation for potential threats.
Okay.
Remember how Gimli initially sizes up Aragorn,
Oh, yeah.
questioning his claim to the throne?
He's not just blindly following.
Yeah.
He's assessing,
Yes.
figuring out if Aragorn's worthy of his loyalty. It's like he's got this internal committee debating everything.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. Wait, what's this inner committee thing?
Yeah, you've lost me there.
Okay, so think of it as a mental board meeting going on inside a six's head.
Okay.
They're constantly weighing different perspectives,
Right.
trying to find that sense of certainty and security by analyzing every angle. It's exhausting,
I bet.
but it's how they navigate the world.
So it's not just gut feelings.
Mhm.
There's a lot of mental processing going on.
Definitely.
But how does this inner committee work with that fierce loyalty sixes are known for? It seems like a recipe for inner turmoil.
It is.
Yeah.
Imagine constantly questioning everything while desperately wanting to believe in something, someone.
Right.
It's a tough balance. But when a six does commit,
Yeah.
it's with their whole heart.
Like Gimli's devotion to the Fellowship.
Exactly.
He's a proud dwarf, but he throws himself into this mission with folks he barely knows.
Yeah.
It's kind of touching, actually.
It highlights that yearning for belonging that's so central to the six personality.
Okay.
They need that sense of community, of shared
Mhm.
purpose to feel truly secure.
And this is where that whole dwarven heritage thing comes in, right?
Yes.
It's not just about beard braiding and ale.
The dwarven society, with its emphasis on tradition craftsmanship and clear hierarchies, provides that structure and certainty that sixes crave.
Makes sense. If I were a six, sign me up for a mountain fortress with solid routines and a good blacksmithing guild. But how does Gimli reconcile that love of tradition with his evolving friendship with Legolas,
Right.
who's basically everything a dwarf isn't?
It's a perfect example of how sixes can grow and expand their worldview.
Okay.
They start with a very defined internal map of what's safe and trustworthy,
Mm-hmm.
and anything outside that is suspect.
So initially, Legolas is like a walking red flag for Gimli.
Pretty much. But through their shared experiences, their challenges, and their genuine connection, Gimli's internal map starts to change.
Huh.
He begins to see the value in different perspectives,
Yeah.
ways of life that were initially foreign to him.
And this is where that cynicism masking idealism thing comes in, right?
Yeah.
We talked about it. Gimli seems gruff,
Right.
but there's this softer side,
Yeah.
especially when he's with Legolas or Galadriel.
Exactly. That cynicism is a defense mechanism, a way to protect themselves from disappointment. But underneath sixes often have a deep yearning for beauty connection and something greater than themselves.
So it's like Gimli's friendship with Legolas is unlocking parts of himself he's kept hidden, maybe even from himself.
That's a great way to put it. It's a reminder that we all have the capacity for growth and change,
Yeah.
even the most seemingly rigid personalities.
And speaking of rigidity, the source mentions how Gimli's physicality reflects the counterphobic six pattern. How so?
Think about his warrior stance.
Okay.
That solid, always ready for battle posture.
Good.
It's a physical manifestation of that inner tension
Okay.
that need to be constantly on guard.
So as he grows emotionally, does his physicality change too? Does he become less tense, less guarded? It's like a whole new level of character analysis.
That's a great question, and it's something to pay attention to as you rewatch those scenes. Look for subtle shifts in his posture, his movements.
Yeah.
Does he relax more around Legolas as their bond deepens?
Huh.
Does his face soften when he interacts with Galadriel?
Whoa, I never thought of it like that.
It's like those subtle cues reveal the inner transformation that's happening.
Exactly.
It reminds us that our physical and emotional selves are deeply connected,
Yeah.
even in fictional characters.
This is why I love these deep dives. We're not just learning about Gimli.
No,
We're learning about ourselves.
exactly.
About human nature. Okay, I'm ready to tackle the final part of this deep dive.
Right.
Bring on the dwarven wisdom.
Yeah.
Okay, final part of our Gimli deep dive.
Meh.
We've gone from battle-ready dwarf to like this nuanced understanding of his counterphobic sixth personality,
Right.
his anxieties, and how those actually fuel his fierce loyalty.
And we've seen how those relationships, especially with Legolas and Galadriel, have challenged his worldview
Right.
and revealed those hidden depths.
But we haven't talked much about Gimli's dwarven heritage.
True.
It's obviously a huge part of who he is.
Yeah.
But how does that tie into all this sixth stuff?
That's where it gets really interesting. Remember how sixes crave security structure, a sense of belonging?
Yeah. Well, dwarven culture provides that in spades. Think about it. Strong traditions, a deep respect for history, a focus on craftsmanship and community.
Yeah, I can see how a mountain fortress with clear rules
Yeah.
and everyone knowing their place would appeal to a six.
Yeah.
It's like the ultimate safe haven.
Exactly. And for Gimli, it's not just about physical safety.
Okay.
It's about a framework for understanding the world,
Right.
a set of values to cling to when everything feels uncertain.
So it's like that dwarven pride we see in Gimli isn't just about being stubborn or liking axes.
Right.
It's deeper than that.
Much deeper.
Yeah.
It's about drawing strength from that shared identity, that sense of belonging to something larger than himself.
Okay.
It fuels his courage, his loyalty, even his fighting spirit.
Which makes his friendship with Legolas all the more remarkable.
Yes.
It's like they're from completely different planets.
Did the article mention anything about how Gimli navigates that cultural divide?
It does. Remember that inner committee we talked about? Well, for a sixie, that internal debate is amplified when they encounter something that challenges their worldview.
So initially, Legolas is like a giant question mark for Gimli's inner committee.
Yeah.
Elf trustworthy, debatable.
Exactly. And that's where Gimli's growth becomes so evident. He starts with this rigid sense of dwarves, good elves, suspect.
Right.
But through shared experiences, through genuine connection,
Yeah.
his internal map starts to change.
It's like Legolas is poking holes in that map,
Yeah.
showing Gimli there's more to the world than his initial assumptions.
Precisely. And it's not that Gimli abandons his dwarven identity,
Okay.
but he integrates these new perspectives, these new experiences into a broader understanding of who he is.
And that's where that idealism we talked about comes in, right?
Yes.
The article suggested that Gimli's cynicism is a mask for something deeper.
You're right. Legolas, with his connection to nature, his grace and artistry, embodies many of the things Gimli secretly admires.
Huh.
The things that spark that hidden idealism.
It's like Legolas helps Gimli reconnect with a part of himself he pushed down, maybe to fit in or maybe out of fear.
That's a powerful insight. It shows how relationships can help us rediscover forgotten aspects of ourselves.
Right.
Those things we've deemed unacceptable or too vulnerable to express.
So their bickering turned brotherhood isn't just a fun plot point.
Right.
It's actually Gimli's journey of self-discovery.
In a way, yes. He's learning that strength isn't just about toughness.
Yeah.
It's about vulnerability, openness, the willingness to challenge your own assumptions.
Man who knew there was so much depth to a dwarf who just wants to protect his beard. So what's the big takeaway from all this? What does Gimli's story ultimately teach us about the counterphobic six personality?
It shows us that those anxieties, that need for control, can actually be channeled into incredible strength and loyalty.
It's like their fear is a fuel source, pushing them to build stronger connections, to fight for what they believe in, to become the most reliable friend you could ask for.
Exactly. And Gimli, with his gruff exterior and his heart of gold, embodies that perfectly.
Yeah.
He reminds us that growth isn't about erasing our anxieties, but about learning to work with them,
Right.
to turn them into something beautiful.
Wow. That's a powerful thought, Gimli. The unlikely self-help guru.
I love that.
So next time you're feeling anxious or unsure, remember Gimli, son of Gloin. Remember his journey from distrust to deep connection, from rigid boundaries to embracing the unknown.
And maybe, just maybe, you'll find the courage to face your own fears, to forge your own unexpected friendships, and to discover the hidden depths within yourself.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive.
It has.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good.